On today's Saints Happy Hour podcast, me and Kevin are going to break down not who is the best in the NFC South, but who is the worst. Thomas, hit that intro.
Welcome to the award-winning Saints Happy Hour podcast. Seriously, this podcast has won awards. American standards are dropping every day. The show features Ralph, the best host in the world, who can barely pronounce his own name, much less anyone else's.
Marcus Marquez Callaway.
Dave is that dude who loves taking bathroom breaks. He's mad about almost anything, so make sure to lower your volume when he speaks.
Put that freaking clown meme back up that I made. Jesus Christ.
Andrew has sources, watches tapes, and knows football. He rarely shows up on time and wants to commit crimes to help the Saints win.
Sean Payton would have done illegal things. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because you know it's true.
Oh, and there's also Kevin, who is great at doing mock drafts, but struggles to actually watch Saints games or have a functioning relationship.
Budrich wants to know how the doctor's doing.
That ended.
Anyway, grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy the insanity.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Saints Happy Hour podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio-only version, rate us, review us, and go to saintshappyhour.com, become a patron so you can get every piece of content we do all the time. All right, I got Thomas running the show back in Poland. I got Kevin with me. Today, Kevin, I thought it would be a fun, interesting exercise while you stuff your face with chicken to talk about the NFC South. And a lot of times during this time of year, everybody does predictions, right? And they say, I'm going to predict who's going to win the division, and I'm going to predict who's going to win the Super Bowl, and who's going to make the playoffs, and all this. That's a fine and good, and we'll do that eventually maybe. But I thought it would be interesting to say right now as we head to training camp, what team is the worst in the NFC South? And the NFC South is fun because it's so bad. I think there's a case to be made for each one of the four teams that they are the worst in the NFC South, which makes it interesting where, as you know, you look at other divisions, you wouldn't look at the AFC South. You can't make a case that the Chiefs are the worst team in the AFC South. I mean, the AFC West or in the NFC East. You can't make a case Philly's the worst or Dallas is the worst. It's the Giants or what. But the NFC South is this weird amalgamation of suck that they're just all these teams are hugely flawed. So I thought it would be interesting to make a case for who's the worst. And I think what we'll do is we'll talk about each team to start and kind of make the case. And then at the end, we'll pick who we think is the worst. Let's start with the team that's won the division the last 2 years, Tampa Bay. They've won the division, Kevin, but the last 2 years, they're 17-17.
Right.
Cumulative record. So let's not pretend like there's some juggernaut. And the thing is, for all the good vibes Tampa created last year, and they won the division, they kicked Philadelphia's ass in a playoff game. Everybody felt good. It got Dave Canales, the offensive coordinator, got him the job in Carolina. They felt good. But Kevin, they were mediocre the whole year. Their run game went from last in 2022 to last in 2023. And their offense went from 25th in points to 20th. So they weren't like great. And here's the thing. I know people forget it now because that last week of the year, we had the whole Dennis Allen apologizing to Atlanta and Jameis's team decision, and everything kind of got washed away. But there was a moment in that Tampa-Carolina game. Tampa scored a touchdown, but your boy fumbled going in, and then Baker got hurt. And if that fumble, if that's a touchdown for Carolina, they would have been up 7-3, and Tampa only won the game 9-0, I think. So, like, that thing switches around. Tampa loses, and the Saints win the South. I don't know. The Tampa could have fired their coach. I mean, I think we view Tampa completely different, and Baker Mayfield completely different if that sort of thing goes different. But it didn't, right? And Todd Bowles is still the coach. But I look at Tampa. They brought everybody back they lost Carlton Davis at corner. They brought everybody back, and they've lost their offensive coordinator. Like, what's the difference between them and the Saints? Like, everybody thinks the Saints are going to go backwards, a lot of the national media, which fine. We'll get to them in a minute. But, like, what's the case for Tampa not being the worst team in the division? I think it's very possible that they could be.
I mean, it's possible that the defense can keep them in games.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm looking at, and now I forgot how to pronounce his name ever since he was drafted because I'm not paying attention to shit anymore. Like the kid from Pitt, Kalijah Cansey.
Kalijah Cansey, yeah. Saints draft darling.
I'm looking at all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what'd you say?
She was a Saints draft darling.
Right.
People love people. Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, you loved him. You were correct. He ended up being very good, even with the short arms.
Yeah, whatever. Like, listen, T-Rex had short arms, and who's everybody's, most everybody's favorite dinosaur is still short arms T-Rex. This ain't a contest of, can you reach that shit on the top shelf, my guy?
That's right.
No, it's a contest of, can you knock a motherfucker over and go get to the quarterback?
That's right.
You don't necessarily need long arms to do it.
That's right.
Whatever. But the defense for the Bucs can keep them competitive, can keep them in.
Yep.
As long as Baker Mayfield, game manages things correctly, and they don't like they've got enough to go 9-8, 10-7.
Yeah.
And that can win the division such as it is. That's the whole point of this exercise. There is no overwhelming favorite. It's basically a plurality between the Bucs, the Falcons, and the Saints. The Panthers, I don't think are the Panthers are at least another year away.
Yeah,
maybe more. But if you're one of these guys that says Baker Mayfield is better than Derek Carr, I'm sure they're out there. Yeah. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure they listen to this podcast. If you're one of those guys, then I can absolutely see you thinking, "Oh yeah, the Bucs can absolutely win this division."
But here's the thing.
Yeah,
their new offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen. Interestingly enough, he was a guy that DA was really interested in getting a couple of years ago. It didn't work out, but he's also a guy after 2022. Sean McVay sort of purged his whole staff and was like, I got to get reinvigorated. I got to change my whole staff around. And Liam Cohen was a guy he fired. So like, even though he's from the Sean McVay tree, which is usually, hey, if you were around Sean McVay, if you got him coffee, if you talk to him in the airport, you get a job, which is still true.
Yeah, I need to go do that.
He was like banished from the circle of trust because he got kind of not fired, but like, he went and got a job at Kentucky to be their offensive coordinator, went back there. So like, I don't know how good a hire that is. And that just goes to show you, Kevin, like it's really hard to hire back-to-back coordinators and be really good. Like look at Sean Payton on defense, right? He had Gary Gibbs. He was okay, but then he fired him, got Greg Williams, got a Super Bowl, but then he went Spagnuolo, right? And Spagnuolo had to go, got Rob Ryan, 1 year wonder, got the dead cat bounce, fired him, and then went to Dennis Allen, who ended up being a fantastic, great defensive coordinator. I'm just saying, like, when you got to hire coordinators year after year, one of those times you're going to miss. And I just feel like if they've missed on their offensive coordinator hire, like it is very conceivable they're last in the South and Todd Bowles is fired out of a cannon, because there's no like Todd Bowles. If they go 7-10, he will have gone 8-9, 9-8, 7-10.
I honestly don't know if that's enough to get somebody fired. I really don't. I mean, not in this division. Like if the Saints win the division at 9-8, or if they win the division at 10-7, I don't think that's enough to get somebody fired.
Well, no, but if
here's the thing, you're coming off a division win. I don't know if you can fire somebody coming off a division win. It's different if you're if you're
Mm-hmm.
if you either have an average or just above average record.
But that's what I'm saying.
Again, you look at it as a case-by-case basis because people will hear what I said at the start and think, well, DA, blah, blah, blah. No. If the Saints don't win and they miss the playoffs, I'm all for Dennis Allen getting booted. But we're talking about the Bucks guy.
I'm
saying if they don't win the division, I don't necessarily think he needs to go.
I think you're right, but I think if he drops below 7 wins, he's probably going to go.
It would have to be cataclysmic. I'm talking. Yeah. It's got to be 5. I think 5 and 12. He's gone.
5 and 12. Anything above 5 and 12, you think he would stay?
It's got to be drastic.
Yeah. Let's get
But I wanted to say. Let me get this last point in because you alluded to it earlier with Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Like a fumble and all this other kind of stuff. You've said this before, how good teams can have a series of fortunate or lucky things happen to them.
That's right.
We said that before, and we've said that before when we were reviewing that the 2009 Saints game with the Eagles, and we're talking about the entire season. Well, the Bucks had some of that, and they only got to 9-8.
That's right.
So without as many of those lucky bounces or fortunate things happening, then where do you go? That should loom over everything with them. You're going to need Baker Mayfield to lead and be excellent and not just be a game manager. You're going to need the defense.
That's right.
You're going to need the offense to step up and be just as good as the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just look at it like, is that really possible?
That's
is that
right.
Really going to happen? So,
and a couple of bad things happen to them because these teams that are all these teams in the South, they all could go between 7 and 10 wins depending on good, medium, or bad luck. You give them I think teams in the South, you give them a lot of bad luck, less than 5 wins is eminently possible for all of them.
So I'm looking at the strength of schedule here.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcons have the easiest strength of schedule. The Saints have the 5th. The Panthers have the 10th. The Bucks have the 11th.
Yeah.
That is collectively the weakest schedule for an entire division. Now, granted, a lot of that's because they're all playing themselves.
And Carolina's terrible.
Right. But again, that's an entire division appearing 11th and higher.
That's right.
You can have one shit team in a division and you could still be spread out a little bit further. I mean, my God.
That's right. Even the AFC South has 2, these teams. But let's get to the team you just mentioned, Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina. Listen, I think there's a strong case for Carolina being the worst in the division, even though last year at this time, Kevin, remember, everybody was like, oh, Frank Reich. He's a proven winner. He's spent $15 million on his coaching staff. He is an all-star coach staff. They are going to be massively better. They've got Bryce Young. They got the quarterback whisperer who won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles as offensive coordinator. They are going to be good. They're going to win the division. And Frank Reich got freaking fired, right? So Carolina, I know they've improved their offensive line. They overpaid. They got 2 guards. They spent out the nose to improve them because their theory was Bryce Young is like Drew Brees. He's short. We got to have good guards, good pocket presence. We got to have a good middle of the offensive line so he can step. You could have
fooled me by their draft.
Yeah. They traded for Deontay Jackson, who's a decent receiver. Their receivers were Adam Thielen, and he was old, and he was terrible, and he was the only guy they could get open. But here's my thing with Carolina. Their defense wasn't that good. I know that the advanced stats might tell you different. Their defense wasn't that good. Here's my thing with Bryce Young. I know maybe he could be better. Maybe he's not atrocious. And we've seen quarterbacks that have had atrocious rookie years like Jared Goff bounce back when they get a good offensive coordinator and they can become ungood. But my thing is, I look at Bryce Young, and I think his absolute ceiling is Derek Carr. So if his ceiling is Derek Carr, what do we know about Derek Carr, Kevin? Derek Carr, if you want to win with him, everything else got to be right. Got to have a great offensive coordinator. Got to have a good offensive line. Got to have skill positions. Got to be able to run the ball. Got to have a good defense. You got to have all those things to make it work with Derek Carr. Carolina ain't got all those things. And I'm not sure. Like Dave Canales, I just don't. Yes, he's a quarterback whisperer, and he convinced Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith to not take sacks. That's his like special thing that he does. Okay, that's cool. But like, why is Carolina, even if they go from 2 wins to 6, great improvement, still could put you last in the South, right? Even if they won 6 games last year, they still finished last. So I still think there's a strong case for Carolina to be last.
6 wins would be a tremendous improvement, Ralph.
It would. It would be 3 times a win.
2-15.
That's right.
Like, do you realize how hard it is to go 2? It feels like it should be impossible to go 2-15.
You win. I feel like you win. I feel like any NFL team, you can win 3 games by accident.
4.
Just yeah. Like you just.
And these guys won 2. It's like that joke in Blue Chips where they're like, oh, what did Shaq get? What did Neon Boudreaux get on the SAT? Oh, he got this. Well, hell, they give you 600 just for filling in your name right.
That's
and
right.
they're like, yeah, he misspelled it.
I mean, the 2005 Saints went 3-13, and they were playing in like 5 different stadiums. They were practicing in a parking lot.
Disaster where their entire lives were in complete upheaval.
That's
and these guys finished worse than that.
Yes. So I think it's a strong case. My question to you is, if Carolina is bad, because we got limited time, so we got to move on. But if Carolina is really bad to start the year, will David Tepper become insane and will do stupid things and fire another coach?
He's going to do stupid things anyway. I don't think they're firing this guy. Like, you bring in a coach to what appears to be a dumpster fire, you can't fire the guy in year 1. I think if Carolina gets to 4 or 5 wins, that can easily be spun, because I'm thinking, how would I react to that? And then how would I see other people reacting to that? It's, hey, we can build on this.
Yeah.
If he gets to 4 or 5 wins, it's we can build on this. Hell, if he gets to 6 or 7, it's house money.
That's right.
It's house money at that point.
I mean, the Panthers, the last 6-7 weeks of the year were an abject disaster in comedy. I mean, they played the Saints, and the Saints ended up beating them by like 3 touchdowns. And the Saints were Derek Carr at the middle of the 3rd quarter. I think he had thrown for like 40 yards. Like they were a disaster. So let's get to the next team as we rumble along in the NFC South and we make the case for them finish last. The Atlanta Falcons. You hate them. I hate them. All Saints fans watching this video on YouTube or listening to this podcast, they all hate the Falcons. We make 28-3 jokes. We despise them. But I think there's a strong case for them not improving. And here's why. Yes, they got Kirk Cousins. And yes, he may be Kirk Cousins like he's always been. But he's old. And he's coming off a ruptured Achilles. What if he's not? What if he's a step lower? What if he goes from like that tier that's like above Derek Carr, but not elite?
Right.
What if he falls down into that Derek Carr-ish tier? I can be the 12th best quarterback, or I could be the 23rd best quarterback, depending on the day and the circumstances and everything.
Right.
So that is one thing. Second thing is Atlanta. They drafted Kyle Pitts. He's kind of like, not a bust, but like when you pick a tight end 4th, he better be a Hall of Fame tight end. He is not. Their offensive line is pretty good, right? They overpaid Mooney, former Tulane Dave guy, wide receiver, but he's kind of meh, you know?
Yeah, but they still got Drake London.
He's okay.
I'm just saying.
He's good.
Drake London,
yeah,
and they've got Bijan Robinson.
Bijan is the truth. He's
like he's great. He's legitimately great. That's the. I hate the fact that this team has that guy, because I know he is really good.
That's right.
And can be great, and they've got him, and he scares me to some degree.
Yeah, and it's like the nerds hate it because they picked him. Maybe that you don't pick a running back 8th, but whatever, they did it, and and as Saints fans, we got to deal with him for like 5 years of
At
peak
least,
Bijan.
yeah, right.
So that's frustrating. But the thing where I think the strong case for Atlanta finishing last again is this. When we talk about the Saints defense, and if you want to be negative and people want to crap all over DA, which I'm not going to fight them if they want to do it because DA is a terrible head coach.
I ain't dying on that hill.
But the thing that they'll say is, even though they're like, well, DA, the defense was top 10 in points last year, but look at all the bad quarterbacks they faced. And this year they're going to play a better slate of quarterbacks because you're going to play Patrick Mahomes and you're going to play Dak and you're going to play Jalen Hurts. Fair point. Completely fair. You could say the same thing about Atlanta. And Atlanta's defense, they did nothing to make their defense better. And Kevin, at the end of last year, there's this pretend thing like Arthur Smith going into the last 2 weeks of the year. Atlanta was 7-8 and controlled their own destiny. Like they could have won those last 2 games and maybe won the South. And they got hammered by the Bears and hammered by the Saints on defense. Totally obliterated by the Saints. Thank you, Jameis. Team decision, touchdown. It was fantastic. And Kevin, they did nothing to fix their defense because they drafted Michael Penix. They didn't really add in free agency. They traded up for a guy that they overdrafted in the second round. I won't try to pronounce his name. They overdrafted him by like a round and a half. And here's the thing. You're going to count on a bunch of rookie defensive linemen? Good luck with that, Atlanta. So it almost feels to me like Atlanta's in the same position as the Saints, as they're just like, oh, we got Raheem Morris, same as Kubiak, and he's going to sprinkle the fairy dust on the defense, and boom, it'll be fixed.
They improved their quarterback position considerably, even if Kirk Cousins is dropped down a notch. They still improved it because they were relying on Desmond Ridder and Tyler Heineke. So it's improved. Just period. End of statement.
That's right.
If Raheem Morris, Salt Bays the defense, and they're even a little bit better. Okay, great. So that means that they should still be competitive in a weak NFC South going into the final few weeks, unless Kirk Cousins completely shits the bed, or unless or unless he's mediocre and then shits the bed. So that way, if you did go with Penix, it wouldn't matter at that point. They're going to be in it going into the home stretch for the season. I think they've improved slightly, and that could be enough. That could be enough in this division.
Yeah. I'm hoping in this division, Kevin, that Carolina is improved and everybody is like 7-8 the last 3 weeks of the year. Just an absolute it'd be an absolute shit.
If you want to go light a bunch of candles for that, you go right ahead.
No, I take it back because
I'm not believing that. I got some magic beans I want to sell you.
Well, let's get to the Saints. We saved the Saints for last, and then we'll pick who we think will finish last. The case for the Saints finishing last in the NFC South, I think, is not what the national media talks about. The national media is like, well, the Saints defense, no matter what, with Dennis Allen, it's always been good the last 5 years. I'm not going to pick against them to decline. I'm scared. I don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. I think the case for the Saints finishing last would be not that they have a bunch of injuries, because look, injuries, we can't predict injuries. You never know how that can go. But I think there is a strong case, if you want to make it, of saying, hey, we look up in October and we're like, oh my God, Demario Davis he's 35 and he's cooked. And Honey Badger is in his 30s and he can't close in safety anymore. And Cam Jordan is still MIA. And this defense that was once really good and dependable is suddenly the 24th best defense. And the offense, all the worries that we had about the offense are coming true. The offensive line is a shit show. Derek Carr, he's playing, but he's been knocked out of 3 games because of concussions or whatever's going on. And he's playing, and he's clearly hurt, and the offense just isn't as good. They still can't run the ball. I think you combine that with Carolina being a 5-6 win team, could potentially put the Saints at the bottom of the division. So what's your thoughts on this? What would make you think the Saints would finish last in the South, not injury related?
I mean, it doesn't have to be injury related. If the running game regresses further and Derek Carr can't even get to what he was last year, this team could absolutely go from 9-8 to 5-12. If the defense was what, 10th, 11th, 12th, something in that area?
It was 9th. It was 8th in points, but it was like middle of the pack, like 12th, 13th if you do like advanced statistics.
Okay. If they slide back 2-3 slots on that, Derek Carr, who, look, he was just above average. If he drops a little and then the rushing game regresses, again, no injuries.
That's right.
Those things can happen.
That's right.
Absolutely can 100%. Happen. I know people want to say, this podcast is overly positive about the Saints or is overly supportive of Derek Carr or DA or
We'll be positive in a minute. Don't worry, folks.
Folks, I am telling you, even without injuries, these things can happen. And if they do happen, the Saints are going to the Saints could very well go 5-12.
All right.
They could I can easily see them going 5-12.
I can see anybody in the South. I can see anybody going in the South going 5-12 with not a lot of injuries. Because I just think the rosters are so fragile. But here's my pick for last in the NFC South, and then you make your pick because we got to get out of here. My pick to finish last, Thomas, if you have a drum roll sound effect, you can use it. If not, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
My pick to finish last, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Come on, man. I waited for the cue. Come on.
Oh. Sorry.
Too late. You can use it for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I picked Tampa Bay, and here's why. I think Tampa Bay, key people of their defense are going to get old. I think their offensive coordinator's not going to be a good hire. I think they're still going to struggle to run the ball. And I think they're just going to be unlucky as hell in close games. And I think they're going to be 5-12 and last in the NFC South. Kevin, who you got to finish last in the NFC South?
Drum roll, Tomas. The Carolina Panthers. I don't see them. Look, I know that's the court. I know that's
the right pick, though.
Talk answer, but I don't care.
Yeah.
They were 2-15. It would have to be a turnaround of epic proportions for Carolina to go anywhere, to finish anywhere but last. And listen, if they hit 6-11 and somehow finish third, that means one of the other 3 teams had to have fallen off hard.
That's right.
And probably lost to the Panthers too.
Oh,
I don't know if I see that.
I'm scared now. Yeah.
If the Panthers the Panthers will jump to 6-11 and it'll be, we're building something. We've got upside, blah, blah, blah. But they're still going to finish last.
Yeah.
I still think they're a year away, probably more.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, thanks for watching us on YouTube. Like this video, subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to the audio-only version, go to saintshappyhour.com, become a patron, and get all of our content. Thanks to Kevin for joining me. Thanks to Thomas running the show back in Poland. He's back off vacation, working hard for us. Thomas, I hope you celebrated the 4th of July like a good American, and you weren't a heathen like the rest of the world.
Fireworks and shit.
That's right. So, everybody, thanks for joining us. Until next time, the bar is closed.